serving their cheeses over here by the bar, and I'm just going to pass it off to them to talk about what they do.
Thanks again for inviting us to join you tonight, and hope you get a chance to sample our cheeses. We're a local dairy outside of Gainesville, in a little town called Hawthorne, and we've brought 3 cheeses tonight for you to sample. We do about 5 or 6 varieties, and they're all raw milk cheeses, aged minimally 60 days by federal law, and we're Jersey dairy. We have our own cows, we produce our own milk, and we pump our milk directly from the storage vat on the dairy through stainless steel pipeline into the cheese plant, and we produce the cheeses right there. We use all Dutch-made equipment. It was built for us and imported from Canada, a friend of ours up there. And we've been doing it about 4 years, and we've been very highly accepted by the public in the Gainesville area, and in Orlando we've been overwhelmed by the reception we've received down there from many of the chefs in the Orlando
for tonight. Was we try to do 2 or 3 of these a year, usually around some part of the year when people can see what's going on at the winery, because you can never come through here and see what happens the whole year. There's just too many different facets of what happens this time of year. The vineyards are all dormant. They're not dead. They're just taking a little nap for the winter, but it's when we can go through and do a lot of pruning in the vineyards and kind of catch up around here. Jeannie's basically starting to release some of her new vintages from last year's harvest, and the fermentation is basically complete on everything. Gone through the filtration and all the other steps that occur. And my vision for this too is, let's take that part of the business and let's combine it with something else. So let's get some of our friends that are professional chefs to help us out, because there's liable to be some people here that are very good cooks or chefs themselves, and there's also liable to be some people here that are somewhat intimidated by certain things in the kitchen. And so my plan was, let's take some items that you might find on a restaurant menu, like a seared tuna or a rapid lamb or something like that, that may be found as intimidating in the kitchen, so you only order that in a restaurant. But some of these things are very easy to prepare. And so that was my challenge, is let's make some of these, let's show the process and how you can make this simply in your own kitchen, and maybe when you go home next week down the road, that you can make that in your own kitchen. What I didn't anticipate is that sometimes when you're working with professional chefs, they don't like to dumb it down and make it really easy. And so that was a challenge to get these gals to say, okay, let's do it with items that they can find easily in their Publix or their supermarket, and do it real quick and simple. I should tell you this, but anyway. So I then decided I need to show them how to do some of this stuff. So you got me showing them how to cook, and I don't think they were appreciative of that. They decided, I think, to meet me somewhere in the middle, but either way, whatever they make tonight is going to be spectacular. So with that, I know some of you have tried the seared tuna already. There's more really good stuff to come.
My name is Jennifer Dellinger, and I'm a chef instructor at the Cordon Bleu. I've been an instructor there for 10.5 years, basically since the school was open. And this is my friend Suzanne, and she is a consultant for one of the best consulting companies in Orlando. So we have 4 courses for you today, and we're going to demo a little bit from each course so you can see. There'll be some food already ready to go that we'll show you a little bit. So you can see how it's done. All the recipes are provided for you in your press kit, written for a small family of 4, family of 6. So if you want to try them on your own, you can. And we also have a special little gift for you that we made, and we'll tell you about that when we actually get to use it. So our first course is a sesame seared tuna. We have sushi grade tuna, ami tuna, and it's really easy to do. The tuna itself is just marinated in some soy sauce and sesame oil. And from there we have coated it in some black and white sesame seeds, both readily available at the grocery store. It's going into a super hot pan with just a smidgen of oil in it. We don't want too much oil because the seeds themselves are already high in oil content. And because it's a sushi grade tuna, we can eat it rare if you want. If you don't like your tuna rare, feel free to cook it medium rare or continue to keep on cooking it. What we're looking for is a nice sear on both sides. So the easiest way to do that is make sure your pan is very hot. Cook it until it's crusty and flip it over about a minute on each side. When it comes out of the pan, all you need to do is let it rest on the cutting board for a little bit and then slice it up and you're ready to go. We're serving that today with some wakame seaweed salad, which is just purchased. You can buy it at the grocery store, you can buy it at an Asian market, you can buy it frozen. That's about the only way you can get it, and that is being served with a wasabi sauce. So we took wasabi, which is usually fiery hot, and mix it with a little bit of sour cream, or you can do it with mayonnaise. Okay, and so the fat actually helps with the heat and the heat in the wasabi, and a soy glaze, which is a thickened soy sauce, and some pickled ginger. So it's kind of like sushi without the rice, is what we're going for right here tonight. And it's pretty easy to do.
It's a wonderful pork root sauce. It's sauteed some shallots and mushrooms. Add some port wine, reduce it. Once it reduces, add either veal stock or beef stock. Reduce that down too, and get some wonderful port wine sauce.
You're going to tell me how to cook this at my house?
And
Yeah, not going to happen. No.
All right, so what I have here is a basic pork tenderloin, taken right out of the package, and they're pretty much ready to go for you. What you want to do is just take off any fat. And then on this side right here, we've got a little bit of what we call silver skin. It comes off as long as you have a sharp knife. Really easy. If you don't feel comfortable doing this, the butcher will do it for you. And the reason why we want to take it off is because silver skin gets tough when it's cooked. And the only way it gets broken down is by moist heat. So think of a pot roast. What happens if you don't cook a pot roast or beef stew long enough? It's tough. All right, but this is a nice tender piece of meat, so if we stewed this or cooked it for a long, long time, the piece of meat wouldn't be very good. The way around that is to take off the silver skin just like that. So just a sharp knife in underneath, and that can just go in the garbage. From that, into a bowl, a little bit of oil, and the herbs that we're using for this tonight are thyme and oregano, and we've got some rosemary somewhere, right here, and some salt and pepper. This gets grilled. If you don't have a grill, you can very easily cook this underneath a broiler, but you want high heat. High heat for this. When it's on the grill or underneath the broiler, you don't move it, you just let it sit for a while. If you move your proteins right away when they're on the grill, they're going to rip and tear and fall apart. So you're just going to let it sit for a couple minutes, and we're going to cook it all the way around. When you know your pork is done, is the easiest way to take a meat thermometer and to probe it. And you need to probe it for about 140 degrees. Okay? If you don't have a, yes.
If I don't have a meat thermometer, what does that feel like? Yeah.
Okay, well, the question was, if you don't have a meat thermometer, what does that feel like? That really only works for beef. Okay?
Red meat, okay.
For red meat. If you're not sure,
I don't want to cut into it.
Yes. You can feel, I can show you what I've done, I can show you how to tell. This will work as well with the white bread. When it comes off, a piece like this will probably be about 5 to 6 minutes on each side. Now, the Pork Council has stated that trichinosis is no longer a threat in America when it comes to pork. There are some other meats that are susceptible to trichinosis, but pork has now been bred, and we follow good animal husbandry rules, so we don't really have a problem with pork. So you can eat pork medium rare, and you like it. It's no longer needed to be cooked super duper well done. Okay, it's all your personal guess.
So instead of wasting this beautiful piece of meat, I should invest $5 in a meat thermometer.
Yes. When it comes off the grill, you need to let it rest. Okay, so that way all the juices that are inside the meat have a chance to settle down and not go all
No, I didn't. Because
Alright, and then we're just going to slice it up. We're serving this with cassava, which basically translates to wine grape. Super easy. You can use shallots. If you don't have shallots, you can use onions. Saute them up. Add some mushrooms. And then we're going to add port wine. When you add the port wine, be careful about pouring it directly out of the bottle. To the flame. And basically right now you need to wait to let it reduce. So if you pour in 1 cup of wine, you gotta let it reduce to half a cup. Alright? Your patience will be rewarded. Once it gets reduced by half, then you're gonna add veal stock. If you can't find veal stock, beef stock works as well. Be careful about using the stuff that's super salty in a can, because as you reduce it, it's gonna become more and more salty. And you just reduce this down until it's nice and thick. Season it a little bit with salt and pepper. Okay, you can do that, I promise. We're serving this tonight with some polenta. What's the difference between polenta and grits? What's the difference between polenta and grits? What's the difference between polenta and grits?
Polenta's mashed up. I don't know.
Okay, it's essentially the same dish. It has its regional thing. Polenta is used with yellow cornmeal, usually a coarser grind. Grits, the cornmeal, the actual grains of corn have been mixolized, which has taken off that yellow skin and ground up. Essentially it's the same thing. Okay, it's cornmeal mush. Polenta, that's what it is. It's cornmeal mush. Polenta originated in Italy. Grits are more of a southern thing. And people will argue, oh, I like polenta, but I don't like grits. And I basically will just school them on they're the same thing. For this, it's very easy. It's chicken stock. Bring it to a simmer. If you don't have chicken stock, you use water. Add some salt. Take your cornmeal, whisk with one hand, pour the cornmeal in with the other hand while you're whisking, and then you add some cheese and herbs and butter and whatever other yummy thing you want. You could add tomatoes or peppers, jalapenos or bacon or you name it. And you just cook it until you get the consistency that you like. It's really loose or really thick, depending on how you want it. And that's what we got.
Which wine do you pair with the?
This we're going to pair with Proprietor's Reserve. It's sort of a sweeter wine, and it will really complement the sauce that we're serving.
Awesome.
So we will plate you up some of this right now.
Great.
Piranha.
Yeah, that's how you put that home. Yeah, you kind of come out here. That's the guy is like.
Our fire red wine, perfect with lamb, and Chef Chen is going to show you how to clean lamb wrap. We're serving ratatouille with it, which we're just going to saute some garlic, onions.
Now that we have effectively smoked you guys all out, sorry. So this is half of a rack of lamb. Okay, so you can buy a full rack of lamb. Most of this is a food service cut, so you would never, probably ever have to do this. But it actually comes apart really easy. I can do most of it without a knife. There's, this is called blade meat right here. I have a blade bone, so shoulder blade. This is coming from the shoulder blade side. It's got to come out. If you don't see it, most people don't see it, but I know it's here. Most of the time, you can get your butcher to do this for you. You would never, ever probably have to cut lamb yourself. Unfortunately, there's nothing you can do with this except for throw it in the garbage. You can't use it for anything. This, you can eat it. You can saute it up. It's just a piece of meat. It's just not pretty. You're more than welcome to, chop it up, saute it up, whatever you need to, grind it up. So we're going to do something called French the lamb, or mâchoner is the French term for it. So it's going to make the bones all nice and clean. So that way, I could cut it into a chop just like this if I wanted to, but I'm going to have meat covering the end of the bones, which is just not very pretty. Very easily done. You got to have a sharp knife. There's a little spot of meat right here called a decal. And you take your knife right above that and you're going to draw like a little magic line on both sides of the meat. Then on the bone side, you're going to score it down the center of the bone. And you're going to loosen up the meat from there.
Yeah, that's it.
And then, very easily, you get a paper towel. It's kind of slippery with gloves. It just pulls right off, just like this. And the reason I have the paper towel, because with the gloves, the meat's just a little slippery. And you clean up the bone just like this, and you pull it all the way down. I mean, I'm not super strong. It's just a little bit of pressure. I pull it down all the way to that line that I drew, and I cut it right off. So if this was pork, okay, all animals have the same bone structure. So if this was pork, this would be riblets. You heard of pork riblets? That's where they get that from. So the same piece of meat. Same thing with this. You can chop it up, eat it. It's still perfectly good, but now you have a nice, clean, sexy looking bone. And you cut them into chops. Just like that. Easy. Now, here comes your surprise. We made for you some rosemary salt. It's in, where did it end up? In the bag? In the bag. So I also provided the recipe for you. It's basically an herb salt. We took rosemary, fresh rosemary, and kosher salt, and we put it in a food processor and whizzed it for a long time, and then we sifted out any big pieces of it, and you have little jars of it like this, so you can see it. I also provided the recipe, but it doesn't take very much effort to make. Either way, I make big batches of it and keep it in the cooler. I use all my leftover herbs that get kind of brown and not super pretty looking anymore. I turn them into flavored salts. And then I just keep it in the fridge so it stays nice and green. But you all have a little jar in your press bag of the salt. The recipe is also in your press kit for you. So this is rosemary salt. Rosemary tastes really, really good with lamb. So for the lamb, we did some rosemary salt, some salt and pepper, and on the grill. and smoked yam. So cooking lamb, probably best done outside. It's a very fatty piece of meat, and it just happens sometimes. We're gonna serve ratatouille with this, and we've all seen the movie, right? With the and actually, I love that movie because they did a lot of research. All those characters in there were based off of true chefs. And it was really funny the first time I saw it. I was really astounded by the fact that Disney had done that much research to look at who they were representing. So this is from the south of France, Provence region. It's a really quick vegetable stew, and because it's from Provence, France, it means that there's certain ingredients that have to be included. Those would be the garlic, the tomatoes, the eggplant, and the basil. So super easy. Olive oil, also from south of France. Olive oil, onions and garlic. Saute that a little bit. We've got eggplants and zucchini. They're going in there next. And we're going to hit it with a little bit of tomato paste and some crushed tomatoes. And then it gets thyme, basil, and parsley. And that's it. And you can cut your vegetables small. We have ours cut for our stew today in a small. You can cut them in larger pieces depending on how you're going to serve it. And it's completely vegetarian, completely vegan. It's just stewed vegetables. Okay, for Wendy. All right. You made this for Wendy. You made it just for Wendy. Thank you. Yeah, tuna's our big fish. Check it, that's what they were doing, yeah.
It was really interesting. Anyway.
Can you tell us what it is? We have got lavender scopes with Florida berries marinated in San Sebastian cream sherry. Thank you.
Homemade Florida cheeses for us to try tonight as we were sampling some of the wines before our first entrees were served. We first had the sesame seared tuna with the seaweed salad, and that was paired, hopefully, you got to pair that with the Blanc du Bois Reserve. The Blanc du Bois Reserve is a wine that we actually make from the grapes that are grown here on our own property. It was a numbered variety back in the 80s. It's called H1837, and we were instrumental in getting that released as a commercial wine grape here in Florida. We helped to give it the name Blanc du Bois. It was named after a Frenchman who grew grapes in the Tallahassee area in the late 1800s, and he was kind of, as I was explaining to us today, he was kind of like the Johnny Appleseed grapes in Florida at that time. Very instrumental in bringing wine to the forefront in Florida. Of course, Prohibition took him out, and it took many, many more years to bring winemaking back to Florida. Our second dish was the herb-seasoned grilled pork tenderloin, and that was with the drizzle with the port wine and mushroom reduction, and we served that with the polenta, and then paired it with the Proprietor's Reserve. Proprietor's Reserve is made from the noble grape. It's one of the 2 muscadine varieties that we grow here primarily for wine. It's best finished in a fairly sweet style, and this is a dessert style wine, so we've boosted the alcohol a little bit more than a standard table wine, so it's around 13.5%. We kind of sweetened it up, and it was a really nice combination with the sweeter style, almost a barbecue kind of feel to that. The next dish was the spiced rack of lamb, and that was paired with the Lakeridge Winery. That is a dry red wine. Here in Florida, our forte is really in the whites, but this is one that we're able to kind of blend with a little bit of some California red wine and some of the dry red grapes that we grow here on our own property, to put a blend together that we can serve as a dry red wine from Florida. Now, I haven't tried this one myself, but judging from everything else we had tonight, I'm sure that the dessert that we're having says Plant City strawberries, the Lakeridge scones, and paired with San Sebastian's creamed sherry. I hope you all enjoy that. The creamed sherry, of course, is made from our Carlos muscadine. That is a white muscadine, and it's a traditional sherry. It's aged for some time in barrels. And thank you all for coming. I hope you enjoyed everything. And if you have any other questions about the wines, the foods, please don't hesitate to ask any of our staff.